So your code works flawlessly on your local machine, right? You've got a handful of test data, everything's snappy, you push it, and you're feeling pretty good. But here's the thing. Testing code on a small scale doesn't even come close to reflecting the catastrophic potential of real-world production load. The real question you have to ask yourself is, what happens when your application suddenly hits 10 million users?
Because, let's be honest, a loop over 10 items is practically invisible. It finishes in the absolute blink of an eye. But a loop over 10 million items, that can completely bring a server to its knees. Big O isn't about counting seconds on your specific hardware or worrying about your processor speed. Not at all. It's about mathematically predicting how your algorithm is going to scale as your input data grows massively.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into Big O complexity. Think of this as your ultimate diagnostic tool for writing truly scalable, efficient software.
Okay, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with number 1, the problem with scale. Then 2, measuring growth. 3, calculating complexity. 4, we'll look at common Big O classes. 5, space complexity and arrays. And finally, number 6, the space-time trade-off.
All right, let's jump into section 1, the problem with scale, and exactly why hardware and seconds don't matter. You see, execution time in seconds depends on totally unpredictable variables. Your specific hardware, the programming language you happen to be using, background processes running on the server, and that is exactly why Big O completely ignores all of that. Instead, it simply counts operations.
Now we have two main boundaries we usually think about. There's Big Omega, which represents the best case scenario, the absolute lower bound of an algorithm. But honestly, as engineers, we anchor our thinking heavily on Big O, which is the worst case scenario, the upper bound. Why? Because production systems don't crash under best case loads, right? They fail under worst case peak loads. So we always engineer for the worst case.
Moving on to section 2, measuring growth, not seconds. It's all about asking the right questions. The fundamental question of Big O isn't how fast does this code run right now? It's actually how exactly does the number of operations grow as the input size grows toward infinity?
To put that into perspective, imagine an input size of just 100 items. An O of 1 algorithm takes exactly one operation, always. It doesn't care about the 100 items. An O of n algorithm scales linearly, taking 100 operations. But look at O(n squared). That small input of 100 suddenly jumps to 10,000 operations. It's wild how small differences in algorithmic growth explode into massive, system-breaking differences at scale.
So let's look at section 3, rules for calculating complexity. We need to simplify the math here. We're going to skip the dense algebra and look at the strict, practical simplification rules that software engineers actually use every single day.
Okay, the crucial thing here is how we simplify our equations. Let's walk through this step by step. Step 1. Imagine you count up the exact operations in a piece of code, and you get O(n squared plus n plus 1. Step 2. We immediately drop the constants. Those static numbers don't matter at scale. So that leaves us with O(n squared plus n plus 1. Step 3. We keep only the dominant term. We just drop the rest, leaving us with a clean O(n squared. When n approaches a million or a billion, that dominant n squared term completely and utterly dwarfs the lower order terms. They just become irrelevant.
Now what about loops? When you have sequential loops, you add them. If you write a loop like for x in A, and then you follow it up with a totally separate loop for y in B right after it, their complexities just combined. An O(n) loop plus an O(m) loop gives you a total complexity of O of n plus m. They don't multiply because they're just happening one after the other.
But contrast that directly with nested loops. If you write 4x in A, and inside that you put 4y in A, you are multiplying those operations. A loop running n times inside another loop running n times quickly turns a fast linear algorithm into a really slow O of n squared one. This is a super common trap, so definitely watch out for it.
Which brings us to section 4, common Big O classes, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's meet the core complexity classes that you're going to encounter most frequently when you're analyzing algorithms.
Here are the efficient classes you generally want to aim for. O of 1 is constant time. It never changes, no matter the input, like accessing an array index directly. O of n is linear time, like scanning through a list just once. O of n log n is that sweet spot for highly efficient sorting algorithms like merge sort. But O of log n? That one is special. Notice how an O of log n binary search masterfully cuts the problem in half every single step? It's literally like taking a phone book and tearing it in half repeatedly to find a name. That is logarithmic efficiency, and it's incredibly fast.
And then we have the classes you absolutely must avoid: exponential, O of 2n, and factorial, O of n factorial. These explode extremely fast. Algorithms like a naive recursive Fibonacci sequence, or a brute force search that tries to check every single permutation, they become completely unusable surprisingly early. Honestly, even with a relatively small input size, these can take literal years for a modern computer to process.
All right, Section 5, Space Complexity and Arrays. This is the equal partner to time complexity. You see, extra memory usage, often called auxiliary space, is just as critical a resource as CPU execution time.
For instance, recursion carries a massive hidden cost. Every time a recursive function calls itself, it consumes auxiliary space on the call stack, waiting to execute. So a recursive depth of n means you are quietly consuming O of n space in the background. If your input is too large, this leads directly to a stack overflow error, unless you use techniques like tail call optimization to convert that recursion into a constant O of 1 space footprint.
Built-in methods are also notorious for hiding complexity from you. A simple .push is generally an amortized O of 1 operation because you're just tacking it on the end of the array. But inserting an element at the front with .unshift, that forces a full O of n operation because every single other element must physically shift its index in memory just to make room. And be super careful with this. A simple lookup like .indexOf can secretly turn your algorithm into an O of n square disaster if you bury it inside a loop without realizing it.
Let's move to Section 6, the space-time trade-off, buying speed with memory. This builds into one of the absolute most powerful optimization strategies you can use in software engineering. Think about searching for duplicates. A naive approach, like repeatedly calling a .count method inside a loop, results in a terrible O of n squared time complexity. You're just scanning and rescanning. But by introducing a little extra memory, like initializing a set to keep track of what you've seen, we only need a single loop. We drop our execution time from a sluggish quadratic pace right down to linear O(n) time, all simply by paying a small tax of O(n) space.
The crucial takeaway here is that sometimes using more memory is literally the fastest optimization you can make. The biggest performance gain you can often achieve is simply avoiding repeated work. Utilizing extra memory, whether that's through sets, hash maps, or caching your results with memoization, is an incredibly powerful tool to have in your belt.
Okay, let's do a quick rapid-fire recap of our core rules so you can take these principles straight into your next code review. First, always ignore constants and keep only the dominant term. Second, sequential loops add together while nested loops multiply. Third, always optimize for worst-case behavior. And finally, don't be afraid to use extra memory when it meaningfully reduces your execution time.
I want to leave you with this final thought. Big O isn't just about making your code run a few milliseconds faster today. It's about knowing for sure whether your code will still work when today's 100 users become tomorrow's 10 million. It's time to stop just counting lines of code and start predicting scale. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep building for the future.